Putin is getting on. You know, he's not. I mean, he's not going to live forever.
Yeah,
That's
72.
Yeah, well, yeah, but you know, there's been rumours that he's not been well, and the people of Russia, you know, will ultimately decide what happens to Russia. But you know, if there is pushback in Russia, and if he is as unpopular as we think he is there, and that this war in Russia, you know, it's not as popular as perhaps Putin would like us to think it is amongst his own people. Perhaps Zelensky does have a point here.
What about you, Lisa? How do you feel about the thought of, I mean, at the moment, we've only got British and French troops on the ground. We did hear some more detail from Emmanuel Macron today. They would be based away from the front line. We didn't sort of hear a whole lot more information about it. But it does make you question, actually, whether the presence of European boots on the ground, it is a red line for Vladimir Putin. He really does not want this to happen. Whether all this talk even is just winding up Putin and it's never going to get us closer to a peace deal.
No, I mean, I'm not reassured by this in any way at all, actually. And actually, I'm really concerned about it. There's a lot of war talk. Starmer and Macron are sort of being very strong men and coming out and almost committing their countries to this project. And yet neither one of them has asked any of us what we think about this. None of them have gone to their own parliaments. Keir Starmer has definitely not sort of tested the public mood. I have concerns that as a military force that we don't have the numbers that would be needed for this sort of project. And at the same time, I'm not sure that the British public would be behind this. And that wouldn't be good for the military at all. And as you said, Putin has absolutely said that he does not want any UN forces or any foreign forces in Ukraine. And I think this would be a red line for Putin. And I think it's the wrong thing to do. And I don't think the British public are actually behind this.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because Keir Starmer got a lot of kudos. It was sort of roundly popular, this sort of Keir Starmer standing up and being the first European leader to commit to this. He is enjoying something of a war dividend, although not necessarily when we look at the polls, for example, for the Runcorn and Helsby by-election, it's not showing there. But he's had, I think, more favourable press. More sort of kind thoughts aimed in his direction since he's sort of gone on this war footing almost. Jim?
I'm in Nottinghamshire, so you know I'm in the Red Wall. I'm in the part of the country that is deindustrialised, very working class, and normally I'm also in a part of the country that's quite patriotic and would normally be the sort of place that would support our military. I'm not seeing or feeling that at all, not in Nottinghamshire or at parts of the Red Wall. What I am seeing is that Keir Starmer is deeply unpopular here. Emmanuel Macron is also very unpopular in his own country, and people are very mistrustful of this. They don't actually trust this at all. I'm not sure, perhaps, that Starmer is reading the room right. Not when you come out of London, actually.
Interesting.
I think Lisa has got a point that public support for British military feet on the ground has declined by about a third in the last 6 months. But I can tell you in Parliament, for what it's worth, it has got a lot of support from all corners of the House. And I think a lot of parliamentarians see something really important happening in Ukraine, and that is the defence of Europe. And it is quite often the Brits, frankly, who have to step up to that. It's happened time and again. And this does feel like a historic moment.
Matthew says Sweden are moving from 2.4 to 3.5% of GDP on defence by 2030. We're still going to be at 2.5 by 2030. And then also says it's true our military is in a totally parlous state and Starmer therefore should stop behaving as if we're a superpower. We can't even put together one brigade. And you touched on this earlier, Jim, about whether Keir Starmer is promising forces we just can't provide. He's promising imaginary forces. Our armed forces are at about 70,000 or so, but a third of those are not battle ready. And if we can't even put enough troops on the ground in Estonia to meet commitments there, then what on earth in Ukraine? Let's just give you this line from Volodymyr Zelensky, which is up on the times.com at the moment. Zelensky was speaking after that summit, and he said that the Russian president, so Vladimir Putin, is near death and fears losing his grip on his people. He will die soon. That's a fact, says Zelensky. It's just him speaking to Eurovision News. These lines just coming through to us. So he will die soon. That's a fact, and it will all be over. I'm younger than Putin, so put your bets on me. My prospects are better. Where's this come from, Lisa?
I suppose it's from the sort of geeing up and the confidence boost that Zelensky is getting from his European friends. It's obviously not coming from the White House, but it is coming from.
Does he know
Europe.
something we don't? There have been rumours, haven't there, for years?
Yeah, I mean, Putin is getting on. You know, he's not. I mean, he's not going to live forever. That's
72.
Yeah, well, yeah, but you know, there's been rumours that he's not been well. And the people of Russia, you know, will ultimately decide what happens to Russia. But you know, if there is pushback in Russia, and if he is as unpopular as we think he is there, and that this war in Russia, you know, it's not as popular as perhaps Putin would like us to think it is amongst his own people. Perhaps Zelensky does have a point here, and this is, I suppose, where my point would be. I would rather see the Russian people decide that they don't want this war, rather than the European leaders sort of pushing for a war and almost fear-mongering amongst the Russian people. You know, I don't think that the Russian people are our enemy, and I don't want them to think that we are either.
Yes, well, I agree with Lisa. The Russian people definitely aren't our enemies. They're a wonderful people, and I share their aspirations for improvement. But it is an autocracy run by a 72-year-old who clearly has got medical issues. We don't know whether that's blood cancer or Parkinson's or whatever it is. And where I think Zelensky has got a point is that we shouldn't assume that Putin is going to last forever and that this autocracy is without any fractures. Actually, maybe this war has taken a huge toll on the regime, and maybe it is weaker and more fragile than we think. I say this because I remember in 1989, we thought that the Soviet Union was absolutely fine. And when the Berlin Wall fell down, we were surprised to find that the whole place was rotten to the core and the wall was based in sand, not concrete. So he is arguing a persuasive case, I think, to say that we shouldn't take Putin at face value and assume that he's powerful.
I think that's fair enough. What I'm observing about Volodymyr Zelensky is, and it must be exhausting. It must be exhausting trying to keep on top of this situation, because not only is there a war going on in his own country, he's also having to toe the line to Donald Trump, who has, in a very muscular way, interfered his way, bulldozed his way into this conflict in a way that suits him and makes it incredibly difficult for Volodymyr Zelensky to try and win a war or to know what direction is next, because he's being pushed in that direction. None of this, regardless of what he's trying to do, none of this is under his own directorate. And by and large, obviously we saw the meltdown in the Oval Office, the really bad behaviour of Donald Trump and JD Vance there. In the Oval Office, and Zelensky's response to that, which I think many people will agree he did a really good job of trying to keep it together, but he did bite back a bit. And you've seen a very measured response afterwards. He's repeating Donald Trump's lines back to him, which is what Keir Starmer's been doing, which is how good diplomacy works. You make it sound as if you're hearing them and that you understand. But every so often, Volodymyr Zelensky just breaks out.
Yes.
He sort of spats out or spits out the dummy, I suppose, is the better way to put it. We had a few days ago the fact that he thought Trump was, trusting Putin too much. Trump's bowing to the word of Putin too much. That was in that Time magazine interview. And today we've had this. He must be exhausted just trying to keep all these balls in the air, Jim.
Yeah, listen, you put it really well. Churchill was under the same kinds of pressures. He understood that the Americans didn't want to go to war and was frustrated and struggled to keep a lid on it. My goodness, poor Zelensky, just at the moment when he desperately needs American support, Trump pulls the plug. And he has a very complicated domestic situation as well. He's got very troublesome generals and domestic ministers, many of whom are clearly in the pay of the Russians, and it's a very leaky, difficult domestic situation. And the threat he faces, we often forget this, is really severe. If the Russians take over Ukraine, if they actually invade, they will exterminate the men and children of the ruling regime. I mean, this is absolutely a fight to the death for many Ukrainians. So it's no surprise that there's a bit of leakage every now and again. I would be able
You would, wouldn't you? And there is the fear as well that in Donald Trump making the demands he has about, trying to take over Ukraine's mineral resources, but also gas and oil too, that he's effectively taking over what is what belongs to Vladimir Zelensky. And the ultimate fear is that he would just then hand that to Putin. He'd basically try and restore Putin's gas empire. So there's loads of different directions you can take this in.